Good morning, easily offended millennials. I hope you like my new background. I call this "My City is Experiencing Historic Flooding," and all of my valuables are on my bed in case my house floods, so I make do with what I can.
As someone who lives in the Netherlands, I can sympathize with your flooding problem. Don't drown, please.
Cute and canny, more than just one out of many.
This video is going to include discussions about racism.
Great. Interesting topic, and a very important one too. Continue.
And because I am white, none of these thoughts about racism in this video are my original thought.
What?
I accredit to most of the ideas that I have picked up from these two videos created by two very lovely black YouTubers. So go and check them out, please, because they're lovely and awesome, and why not?
As someone who has been in law school and who is currently doing work as a high school teacher, I've had a lot of sociology and communication classes, so I am somewhat capable of distracting the meaning from what you're saying here. And what you're saying is quite interesting, frankly. You say that as a white person, obviously, none of these thoughts are your original thoughts. Because for some reason, the idea that someone with your skin color would also have an opinion on this topic is outrageous. And that is why you claim that you've been inspired by two black YouTubers, most likely friends of yours, who have discussed this issue in their videos. Now, I've attempted to watch these videos. The one with the girl in it I've already seen, and the other one with the guy is so annoying and over-energetic that I felt the urge to stick a spoon in my eyes as I was watching the video. But since both people had their videos titled, "Yes, all white people," I think I know what the overall theme of the argumentation is. Like I said just now, there is a lot I can tell from these first few seconds of your video. Let me elaborate on that. Because of your skin color, you completely erase your credibility on discussing the issue of racism, which is an issue that transgresses one race and therefore is relevant to anybody of any racial background. The idea that a white person, based on their skin color alone, could never have a valuable opinion on this, frankly, is rather racist of you. But there is more, you know. How you go on about this issue, to me, is a nice demonstration of social justice rhetoric at its worst. You are white, therefore your opinion on this, your values, your moral code are inferior and even irrelevant. Because of that, you have to ask other people to tell you more about how you feel. And when those people tell you all white people are racist, for not a single second you go, hold on. I'm not racist. I know what's going on in my head, and I know for a fact that I have no racist feelings. Instead, you blindly accept it and don't question their outrageous claim. This implies a few things. First and foremost, skin color is so important to you, your self-worth and your respect for others, that it matters more than people's thoughts or actions. It is the leading factor in your evaluation of another person's thought or intentions. What they think, say they think, or actually do is irrelevant because skin color. If you are black, you can tell me and all white people how they feel or think only based on the fact that you have a darker skin color. How very racist of you, Milo.
All white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic.
These are such wild assertions, I don't even know where to start. In order for anyone to make such heavy claims about very large groups of people, because, let's face it, most people on this planet are cis, one must have astounding amounts of evidence. But I guess expecting that from a social justice warrior is not very realistic. As a matter of fact, I am sure Anita's razor is applied here. That what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed with evidence. I wonder what you base this conclusion on, you know. I am honestly thrilled to hear your reasoning. You're probably not a dumb person, so I would love to see the mental gymnastics it must require in order for you to think this is an okay thing to say. I mean, is this based on personal experience? On the people you run into? Or is this based on what a few black people have told you about all white people and you as yourself think about all cis people? I assume neither you or the black YouTubers you've mentioned before in the video have met all cis people. or all gay people, or all white people, or even all men. So if therefore I don't know if you are qualified to speak on their behalf and judge them the way you do. It's interesting how both the extreme left and the extreme right end up thinking in similar ways. Both ends of the political spectrum dismiss and worship entire groups of people based on things like skin color, sexuality, and gender. You just dismissed men, 50% of the population, and called them universally sexist without a shred of evidence. Did it ever occur to you that people are individuals and not a group? Did it ever occur to you that, just like with trans people, cis people are all unique human beings with original thoughts and feelings? They're not a group that acts like a political entity with one common agenda. I mean, if you ever wonder why you have so many dislikes, this is why. There are two things that could be going on here. Either your audience consists out of gay people, black people, cis people, all marginalized groups who all think it is outrageous what you just said and heavily disagree with you. Or your audience consists out of disgusting white heterosexual men who don't like being called homophobic, racist, sexist, or transphobic. The fact that they see any of these things as an insult and take issue with you calling them it says a lot about how they view homophobia, racism, sexism, and transphobia. They think it's a bad thing and wish not to be associated with it. Let that sink in for a while.
All members of a majority are biased against the members of the minority or oppressed group.
So this only works if you are in the majority, not if you're in a minority. Then you're just immune to this effect that you're speaking of, right? Weird, because just a few seconds ago, you called billions of people racist and sexist and transphobic and homophobic. That sounds like a very biased thing to say. I mean, let's look at the definition of prejudice, shall we? The quality or condition of judging someone or a group of people before you meet them, usually using stereotypes. Isn't that what you just did now, Milo? I mean, I know that by your own logic you can't be prejudiced since you are a minority, but the dictionary suggests otherwise.
In fact, most people are racist, misogynistic, transphobic, ableist, etc.
At least most is more nuanced than all, but this statement still doesn't hold up under scrutiny for the exact same reasons that everything else you said in this video up until this point didn't. Where do you base this on? Why do you judge people based on their gender, race, or sexual preferences? Practice what you preach, Milo. You expect people to be fair and respectful to gay and trans people, and that is a very reasonable expectation that I, and certainly 99% of my viewers will agree with. But the message would look a whole lot better if you would practice what you preach. Right now, you demand respect for your gender while blatantly saying all men are sexist pigs. You demand respect for your sexual preference, but say awful things about everyone that has another sexual preference, even if that sexual preference is heterosexuality. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and dismiss your personal experiences. I'm sure you've dealt with transphobia or homophobia in the past, but just make sure you're not getting a taste from what you give to other people. I won't exclude it from the realm of possibilities that you get hatred from people because of your hatred towards them. Aggression causes aggression. Hate brews even more hate. Keep that in mind, kid.
I am racist, classist, ableist, and I probably contribute to many other systems of marginalization that I am not aware of.
So how do we determine this then? I mean, you say you are not aware of it. Well, maybe that is because, gosh, I don't know, you are none of the things you just claimed you are. Milo, most people will agree with you that bigotry towards any group of people, unless we're talking about manga fans, is a bad thing. By blindly sticking these awful labels on people, you don't further the discussion. You hold it back. You denigrate the meaning of sexism by calling 50% of the Earth's population sexist. You make this a cookie-cutter insult that in 10 years' time will have the same impact as calling someone a duty face, and that will be the fault of people like you. I mean, let's explore your reasoning even further here, alright? You say the majority. Are we talking globally or nationally? Because we all know white people are not the ethnic majority on an international scale. Are we talking nationally then? I am racist because I am part of the white majority. Is that the point you're making here? So, what if I move to Zimbabwe? What happens then? Am I all of a sudden cured of my racism now that I am the minority because minorities can be racist? Are all black people around me now racist because they are the majority? Does that mean they have to ask me what racism is because their opinion doesn't matter because they are not part of the marginalized minority? And what if I'm in a white minority, in a black majority neighborhood, in a white majority country? Who is racist now? What if my friend Tyler Preston and me go to the moon? Who is racist now? It's 50-50. Come on, who's the racist? See, this is how stupid your reasoning is, Milo.
Words like racist, misogynistic, and transphobic are not insults.
They are. And you know why? Because people realize how bad racism, sexism, transphobia, and homophobia is. People who are bigoted like that are not people we wish to associate with. Being called one of them is insulting. The fact that you don't see this is very telling. You probably don't take this as seriously as we do.
Nor are they stereotypes or generalizations.
A word in itself is not a generalization, silly. Saying, however, that an entire group of people is that word is a generalization. It is your use of the word that is generalizing.
Rather, they are facts about the way we are socialized in a Western society.
And this is a fact how? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and I am still sitting here and waiting for the evidence. You said not that long ago that you yourself are a racist, Milo. Does that mean you are just projecting?
And in most other societies. I talk mostly about Western societies because that is what I have the most experience with. Saying that we're all raised to believe that gender is defined by anatomy and chromosomes is not a stereotype. It's a fact about how we are raised.
Milo, listen. Your sex, your gender, by default, is either male or female, and how you feel is usually also either male or female. We determine this by just having a glance at a baby's genitals during an echo or right after birth. However, I say usually, which is crucial to the point I'm trying to make here. There are people that are born in a male body but feel female, and people that are born in a female body that feel male. Hell, maybe there are even gradations on that scale, and I wouldn't know because I'm not an expert on it. Maybe you can feel like no gender at all, or like both. Either way, I don't care. If you would be a boy identifying as a girl and you would ask me to use the she and her pronouns, I would. I'd call you by your female name and treat you like a woman, and if you were to go to a public restroom, I'd be fine with you going to the ladies' restroom. To be honest, I'd even be okay with men going to the ladies' restroom, because honestly, I don't have a problem with one universal restroom, but that's a discussion for another time. Honestly, I think there is nothing wrong with being trans. However, trans people are an exception that confirms the rule. The concept of being trans can only exist if the two default positions are male and female. Children are taught that at age 2 because a 2-year-old cannot be expected to understand being a transsexual or being a hermaphrodite or any of those things. Discuss it with your children, teach them about it, but do it when they're old enough to understand it. Otherwise, you give them information they might not be able to process, and that might actually lead to them picking on kids or fellow students because something was thrown at them that they couldn't quite understand at their age. Just teach your children gay people and trans people exist. Teach them we are all equal and deserve respect and love. Children are not naturally hateful. Okay, what children care about is whether you're a cool person or not. Can I play football with you? Can we go play hide and seek? That's what they care about. With 2 decent people as parents, children will be fine, honestly.
Even if you have liberal parents or teachers who teach you about gender identity, you still come into contact with the idea of biological gender through the media or through interactions with other people.
Sweetheart, biological gender is a thing. If the male-female scale wouldn't be a thing, then transgenders could not be moving on that scale. Why is it such a problem to acknowledge neurological gender or biological gender? What you were born as and who you yourself feel you are. I mean, if you are born a woman, even though you feel like a man, the fact that your anatomy is female, your biology is female, is crucial. Neurological gender is psychologically relevant because psychology deals with your personality and your feelings and all that stuff. Biological gender is medically relevant. In a hospital, it is often very important to know how much a patient weighs, how old they are, and whether or not they are male or female. And I'm not talking about how they identify, but how they were born. Biologically. Alzheimer's disease, for instance, occurs more often with women than with men, as does breast cancer. And obviously prostate cancer is purely a male thing. And cancer doesn't care whether you're identifying as a male or a female. It won't choose not to give you prostate cancer because you want to be a woman and chose to distance yourself from your prostate. There are medical instances, and I'm talking about diagnosing, but also about estimating which medication and how much medication to give to someone where your biological gender is so relevant, Milo.
Even if you are raised by open-minded people, you will still be psychologically affected by living in a society built on imperialism, which, by the way, created cisnormativity and heteronormativity.
Well, if it doesn't matter whether or not my parents are good people, then why not stop raising children? Apparently, if you are raised well, even the slightest bad thought that comes from the outside world could just ruin you. For some reason, hearing an asshole say asshole things on TV is going to ruin 15 years of being raised by good parents with good values and good intentions. Milo, if the majority of people are none of these things you are saying they are, if all these parents are liberal, open-minded, and tolerant, then who is creating this evil society? Who is setting up the system? Which invisible monster is orchestrating all of this? Because right now, I have no fucking clue.
A 2012 study, which I will link below, observed how white people empathize with black people less than we do with other white people.
And don't forget to mention that black people also emphasize more with And don't forget to mention that black people emphasize more with other black people than with white people. This works both ways, Milo. It has nothing to do with racism. It's just that people will identify more with anybody that looks like they do. If I always wear red sweaters, I will identify more with other people that wear red sweaters, unconsciously. It doesn't mean I have a deep hatred for people with white sweaters. Milo, not every time you see smoke, there actually is a fire. You know, sometimes someone just burned a sausage on the barbecue, honestly.
Because our minds register their pain as being less severe than it actually is. We're raised to believe that black people are lesser.
No, we're not. Maybe your parents were dedicated KKK members, but other people's parents weren't.
And that they're more likely to be dangerous to us, even though history has proved the opposite to be true.
History hasn't proven that any race was particularly dangerous. If you're referring to slavery, then you are just blatantly wrong. Not a single race is more prone to doing certain things. It is all about where you live and grow up. Slavery happened everywhere. White people did it in Europe and in America, but people in the Middle East did it too. Hell, even in Africa, black people were participating in slave trade, enslaving and selling off other black people of rivaling tribes and villages. The only difference is that the West had the wealth and technology to be very effective with it. And that is a very bad thing, don't get me wrong, but that is one thing you need to understand. White people had the resources to do this on a grand scale. If you would go back in time and put white people in Africa and black people in Europe, the same thing would have happened.
We're raised to believe that gender is based on biology, and that features that are typically associated with one sex are repulsive or shocking on the other binary gender.
Yeah, you keep saying we're taught these things, but I'm still waiting to see your evidence.
Especially when it comes to transgender women. Beauty standards affect everyone's psychology, and cisnormative beauty standards are no exception. If you followed me this far, and you agree that all people are psychologically affected by marginalization, but you disagree with calling these biases racism or transphobia or misogyny, then there's really no point in arguing further.
What? You don't blindly agree with me and have a problem with my blind generalization that all men are sexist and all whites are racist, then there is no point in arguing. How about you listen to what people who disagree with you have to say? Honestly, my mom always told me you don't get smarter from talking, you get smarter from listening. A lesson I'm sure you were never taught.
Once a discussion boils down to disagreement over the definition of a word, it's probably not going to be very productive.
Everyone knows the definition of racism. The problem is not the definition, but how that label is blindly attached to a huge group of people you have never even met in your entire life. No one is arguing the definition of racism, Milo. People are arguing that everyone that is white is also racist. And if you say people are biologically prone to prejudice, sure, you can make an argument out of that. But since you agree with me that people of all races are the same, you must also agree with me that white people and black people have the same biology. Meaning that this would not be a problem exclusively for white people, but for everyone. That would make both white people and black people and everything in between biologically prone to prejudice. Your bullshit is falling apart, kid.
However, I will make an argument for why I believe we should view racism, transphobia, and misogyny from a wider lens, and you can feel free to respectfully disagree with me. I think that when people hear words like racism, transphobia, and misogyny, they think of blatant, unapologetic hate, like violently attacking someone because of their identity. Certainly, people who commit violent hate crimes are very, very bad people. However, I believe to properly dismantle systems of oppression, we must acknowledge that being racist or transphobic or misogynistic or ableist or whatever does not make you a bad person.
Your train of thought is sort of hard to follow here. I agree with you, not all racists commit hate crimes, and not all homophobes beat up gay people. So if that is the widen the lens argument you were making, then sure, I agree with that. There's hatred more subtle than blatant violence. But then there are still two issues I have with what you're saying here. First and foremost, how wide is that lens going to be? Because there are certainly less severe cases that are still racist, but how far will you go in calling things racist? Since you call me a racist and call yourself a racist only because of the color of your skin, which in and on itself is racist, I am sure you are willing to go pretty far. Kind of scary. The second issue I have is that you stick the racist label on too many people. Basically entire groups, and you don't even have any evidence to back up that these people, as a matter of fact, are all these things that you were saying they are. The second issue I have is that you stick the racist label on too many people. Basically entire groups. And you don't even have any evidence to back up that these people, as a matter of fact, are all these things that you are saying they are. You were talking about widening the lens, but you have widened the lens to the point where it includes the entire population of planet fucking Earth.
By being afraid to call ourselves racist, we are failing to acknowledge how our biases contribute to systematic racism.
Stop telling other people what they are. This is such bullshit. Apparently we're not just people that simply aren't racist and that refuse to wear the racist label since it doesn't apply to us. No, we are closet racist. Racist in denial. You know what that reminds me of, Milo? People going to trans people saying, you are not really trans. You're not. You're cis. You just have to stop denying it. People are denying it because it's not true. Not because they're afraid to admit it.
Microaggressions are mocked as not really being a big deal.
Because they aren't. It's even in the name. microaggression.
So we fail to acknowledge when they do legitimate harm. Yes, there have been a lot of police officers who have been outed as members of the KKK.
And what is a lot? 10? 100? 1,000? If the pond you're fishing in is big enough, then eventually you'll catch a big fish. And that is just statistical likelihood. Of course, someone somewhere is going to be racist. But can we please compare that to all those people that aren't racist? I'm not very interested in disturbed individuals, since they are disturbed and therefore don't represent a larger group of people. What I'm interested in is the ratio of racist to non-racist. That is what you have to show me.
But not every police officer who has harmed an unarmed Black or Latinx person has been a member of the KKK. Subconscious biases are the reason why we're more likely to see a Black person holding a cell phone or toy gun and think we see a dangerous armed person.
As a European, I'm not going to comment on how much racism there is or isn't in the United States of America, since I don't live there, but you do seem to have an issue with police violence and maybe even racist police violence. However, I don't think you are going to fix that by, instead of calling actual racist racist, widening the definition and calling everyone a racist. As a matter of fact, I think you're more likely to make a very serious issue laughable because you're making a caricature out of the arguments. It's like satire, except for the fact that it isn't satire.
And they're also to blame for the fact that many victims of police brutality were never given the medical treatments that could have saved their lives. Microaggressions are also to blame for the fact that transgender women are stereotyped as being sex workers.
Look, I don't take the term microaggression seriously because it's a Tumblr invention and used by so many people to describe so many different things. I honestly have a hard time understanding what it even means. I once saw a social justice warrior arguing that when white people deny they are racist, that is a microaggression. I mean, come on! Oh, and on a side note, that stereotype of transgender women being sex workers, I have never heard of it before. Maybe that has something to do with me being Dutch, but regardless of that, never heard of it.
Which hurts people like Megan Taylor, who was jailed for 8 days after the hotel she was staying at wrongfully reported her. If we refuse to classify people who hold biases and stereotypes as racists or transphobes, then we're not acknowledging how damaging less blatant racism and transphobia can be.
We all agree it is damaging, Milo. What we don't agree on is that everyone is a transphobe. You try so hard to convince everyone that bigotry is bad, but you are attempting to slay an invisible dragon. We all know it's bad, Milo. That is not something that you need to convince us of. That has never been the topic of debate. What people disagree with here is that you claim everyone is a bigot.
And we're not forcing people to become aware of their own microaggressions. The whole point of acknowledging that we're racist, transphobic, misogynistic, etc.
You are the one that says you are a racist, classist, ableist scum. That doesn't go for me, or for the people watching this.
It's so that we can better recognize our biases and work to overcome them. So those are my thoughts. I don't normally speak on issues that I feel like Black people can much more eloquently and originally speak on.
Racism is an issue that is relevant to all of us. Racism occurs everywhere, and in many different forms. Don't disqualify someone, even if that someone is yourself, from discussing a topic simply because you are white. It's disgusting, and self-hatred is an ugly emotion.
But I had a lot of people coming to my channel wanting to know why I said all white people are racist, so this is why. Please go check out some other channels.
Except for the fact that you didn't explain why. You just repeated your statement. For 6 minutes straight, you've been trying to convince all your viewers that racism is bad, but they already know that. It is how you stretch the definition, how you stretch the accusation. That is what you had to explain. But you didn't explain that. It's why people were angry with you, Milo. And this is why they're still angry. Just because you are a bigot doesn't mean others are too. I, for one, am not one. I've been Griffiths, and enjoy the rest of your day.